Hey, what's up, guys? Ex-Morgan with My Spiritual Life. And happy Halloween. I was really upset that I didn't get to do any live streaming during October, so here we are. And I coerced Cody and Jared into dressing up too. So,
Monsieur Increíble!
okay, welcome to the channel. I am so excited. Today we are going to be talking about things Mormonism got right. If you don't know Cody, he is the Ubermormon. You can check him out. His link is below. And Jared here is Spider-Man from the PS4. So, and I'm Spider-Gwen, which I wish had a cooler name than she does, but that's okay. At least her
Something that you
costume's
gotta
cool.
learn about like wearing a costume that covers your mouth is that you learn to talk with your hands a lot. It's kind of like Power Rangers. You can either talk with your hands or you can just nod your head for everything you're saying. I watched a lot of Power Rangers when I was a little kid, and it was always like this.
That is acting
But
101.
somehow they looked even stupider when it because Spider-Man will like wave his hands around and be snarky, but Power Rangers were always like, "Hey, should we go that way?"
I want to see you do that, but with the mask off. How ridiculous!
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I think you probably look just as ridiculous, right? I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
It's like in like South America when people are telling you where something is and they kiss in that direction. They're like, "The store's over there."
Yes. My brother. He went to Mexico, so I learned all about that. Okay,
Yeah.
I have to take an arm out because I can't use my keypad. If you are watching, comment where you are watching from. Thanks for being here, guys. I really wanted to do this video because as I've been out of Mormonism a long time, like I've done a lot of healing around it, and I felt like I really wanted to talk about some things that Mormonism did right, because we kind of have that tendency to want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that it's important for us not only to deconstruct things that Mormonism did wrong, but to figure out what they did right so that we can find whatever helpful tidbits and things that ideas, morals, whatever Mormonism had to offer, so we can find that or apply it in our lives still, regardless of leaving. Isn't Halloween over? Clearly, it's not. I don't. What
Does it look like it's over to you?
Does it look like it's over? Excuse you. Anyway, I didn't get a live stream in October, guys. Okay, I wanted to wear costumes for one video. I didn't get a chance. All right, that's where we are. Another thing that I was going to say about that was that I do feel like it is a good thing. It's a sign of healing, I think, to be able to not just point out things that Mormonism did wrong, but to be able to point out, like, here's some things that was helpful in my childhood. Here's some things I appreciate about it. And I think that that's a good sign if you can get to that point. Halloween is just never over. Thank you, Gail. You got my back. Thank you. Oh, and Gail is a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. Yeah. Also, I've got a bunch of comments to read from an online forum where I posted this question, like, what good morals or lessons or ideas, did you take from Mormonism? And I got a lot of comments saying nothing. So we're going to talk about that too. Ooh. So does anyone want to open up with a thought of something Mormonism got right? Could be morals, something you liked about it, something
polygamy.
You enjoyed. Yeah. But too bad they don't do it anymore.
They bitched out of that like 100 years ago.
Yeah, it does seem like a pansy move.
I'm not going to say what I was thinking I would say because it would get all three of us canceled immediately. But I think it's amazing to do a video where we can just talk about the good things and not say any of the bad things. I think the people out there who are only saying the bad things, we should be weary of them because they're obviously one-sided thinkers and are a little bit too biased to like see things clearly. And anybody who tells you that there's like nothing good from Mormonism is a little scary to me. I know we'll probably get to that point later, but it's like, you got to be able to recognize that there was some good. Otherwise, your worldview is so slanted that I don't know if anything you say could be trusted.
There's I guess I'll give people some amount of like a grace period to be
Definitely
unreasonably angry or something like that. But
For sure.
Definitely.
I don't know. But there's a lot of people who, like, you know how bad something would have to be, like how god awful a childhood would have to be to have no redeeming qualities at all. Like, I hated every moment of my mission, but there were some things that were not horrid that came out of it. Like, I learned a language, and I really, really enjoyed learning languages. It's fun.
That was some comments that I got as well. Cody, I like what you said, because I do think that for us who have left a religion, there's nothing more annoying than a Mormon who's like, the church is perfect. Like, there's nothing more annoying than like someone who just cannot see any nuance at all and be like, yeah, things could be better, you know? And it's the same thing with ex-Mormons. There's nothing more annoying than ex-Mormon who's like, there's nothing good I ever learned there. F all of them. Like, I just don't think it's healthy. And yes, we all go through that phase.
Right.
I don't think it's the healthiest perspective. And here's the thing. I realized this, like, in like with psychology, we have this thing where if a parent has a certain trait that we really don't like, we will try to do the opposite of that trait oftentimes. So like my mom, for example, was she always thought she was right oftentimes. And, you know, most of us have a parent maybe that had that experience with, but what I learned from that was that it's like I shouldn't be confident ever, because I don't want to come across as arrogant or like a know-it-all or like bulldozing over people. Like, I don't want to come across that way. So like I'm not even going to appear confident at all. And that's just like going the other extreme. Now, like at first you could say I was being controlled by Mormonism because I was following all the rules. But on the flip side, you can say I'm being controlled by Mormonism because now I'm trying to avoid everything Mormonism ever said and did. And you're still being controlled by it at that point. So I think it's fun to have a discussion about this for those reasons.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a list. Do you want me to name something that I think was good?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay.
I've got a list too, and we'll just bounce back and forth.
Okay, so the first one that I thought of is the way that Mormonism encourages people to start families early in life. I think that's a huge good thing. And yeah, what do you guys think of that?
Well, I was gonna say that one. What has you thinking about that, huh?
Because I sent him Jordan Peterson's Daily Wire thing about marriage kids. I'm just kidding. That might not be it.
Well, I have been watching that, but I just think of like, so I heard, there was this podcast like 3 years ago that I listened to that Gavin McInnes did. And he was talking about,
really,
I know,
I know.
Yeah, we're done. But he was saying like, when you have your first kid, like you keep pushing off the first kid and you're like, no, that's going to end my whole life. I don't want to have kids. And then you have your first kid and you're like, this is amazing. I want to have another kid. And then you have another kid and then you're like, this is the best thing ever. I want as many kids as I can have. And then you end up having like 3 less than you wanted to because you and your wife are now too old to have kids. He's like, and we shouldn't have delayed it so long at the beginning because we thought that we were earning ourselves more life, and we weren't at all. We were delaying something that's so fun. So he's like, I have 3 kids. I think that's true. I think he has 3 kids. But he's like, I would have loved to have 5, but we just started too late because we thought that we were going to lose our whole social life.
Yeah. We had I remember having a discussion with one of my friends about kids, and he's like, yeah, I think you guys all started too early, man. Like, this is great. Like, I can hang out and watch cartoons with my wife. I was like, dude, we're 31, man. We're not young. We're just regular adults. We're not even young adults anymore. So,
right.
But I did like, I think it was Jeremy Boring said it, that like you don't grow up in order to get married. You get married to grow up. So there's this sort of thing, like the more you grow, the more of an individual you become, which is great. You should do that. But like if you meet somebody later on in life, it'd be a lot harder to merge those two very distinct identities where, like, you know, we met in Book of Mormon class and haphazardly got married 8 months later. I used to tell everybody that was stupid of us. Like, well, that was, you know, it worked out well for us. That's because we got lucky. But lately I've been kind of thinking more like, fuck that. We did it right.
Definitely.
I think that detractors to this idea would say, like, that's, you know, really hard, you know, being poor, having kids, you know, and maybe getting into it not even really sure what you want. And I totally recognize that, and I think that there could be some kind of happy medium of, like, maybe don't get, you know, maybe you don't have to get married right at 18, but certainly I don't think that it's ideal to wait till you're 30, because I think that's a lot harder to merge a life with someone else. The way I see it is, I think that I've really enjoyed building a life with Jared. And, like, yeah, if we had waited longer, like, maybe, I don't know, I used to think if we had waited longer, like, we could have sorted our shit out more and, like, then been better for each other or something. But first of all, that possibility doesn't exist, right? That would have mean that we wouldn't be together.
Right.
Second of all, I don't think you can figure your shit out without someone, like, in your face, like,
calling you out on it.
triggering all your shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, okay, could I have been further along, like, before we got married? Yeah, but, like, would I have gotten this far without getting married young? I don't know, because I do think that getting married is like what Jared said. I think it helps you finish growing up. And so additionally, I've had a lot of friends that have left religions and they've regretted how much kids that they had because they felt all this pressure to have kids. I have a lot of sympathy for that, because it would suck to feel like you didn't get to choose it yourself. We're not in that position, so I can't necessarily relate with it. But in my mind, I'm like, I just don't see much in life being more fulfilling than having a family. So to me, I'm like, okay, you're complaining that you had too many kids, but, like, what would you have done otherwise? And what could have been more meaningful than that time with those kids? And again, like, I'm sure there's a limit, a threshold with this, but that's kind of my thoughts on it currently.
Yeah, a funny way to think about marriage and, like, single life. Single life, you're, like, just hiding your shit in the closet. You're sweeping all your shit under the rugs, and you're like, no one's ever gonna find out about this. Like, this is where it will stay. And then being married is literally just having another adult lifting up the rug and being like, what the fuck is this? You care to explain all of this? And you're like, I know that I need to clean that up, but I've just not been doing it because I have been, I don't know, hiding from it, procrastinating from it, afraid of what I have to, all the other things that I have to encounter in order to fix that shit is so many things. So it's easier to just sweep it under the rug. And it's like, I don't know. It's just like, so
I like that analogy a lot.
So why did you put this under the rug? Ugh.
Well, it's just, I mean, as long as you find somebody who will challenge you, which,
that's true.
Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people interpret any amount of marital strife as a sign that something's going wrong, but it sucks having somebody challenge you when you're not used to it, but get used to it. Like, everybody should be challenging more than they do, but they don't, because people are pussies.
Right.
Well said. People are pussies. All right.
It's like, you know what kind of people never get challenged? Like, do you know who they grow up into? It's like people who you can't even, like, give a mild criticism to, because they'll just, like, push you off the ends of the earth. They'll, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's well said. Yeah, so marriage and family, I had that on my list. Another thing I had on my list was actually sex, because here's the thing, right? Mormons, like, don't have sex till you're married, right? And then you have, like, the ex-Mormon, ex-religious world that's like, I gotta sow my wild oats now. And I gotta open up my marriage. I gotta go, do all these things and live my best sex life. And I think I lean more toward the Mormon view now. And I think the reason why is because I feel like I don't like this idea in kind of the secular world that like sex doesn't really mean that much. And I think that if you treat it that way, then it doesn't. And I think that that's a bummer. And so I'm not necessarily of the viewpoint that you should wait till you get married, but I'm of the viewpoint that you should wait till you're very, very committed to someone.
Right.
Because I don't think it's good to sleep around. And
Yeah.
I think that it can harm you. I think it can harm other people. And I think people are lying to themselves, and I'll say especially women, I think are lying to themselves when they say they can sleep around and not let it affect them psychologically or emotionally. Now, people can comment and disagree with me, and that's totally fine, but that's my thoughts on it so far and with the research I've done on it.
Well, I think my only pushback on that would be that I think, yeah, like if you can wait till you get married, that's great. If you can at least wait till you're pretty committed, that's great. And if that's all that Mormons taught about it, that'd be awesome. I guess but they do sex pretty wrong in a lot of different ways. Like they do
like missionary position.
No, they they tell you that you're
It's a bad
only
joke.
allowed to do butt stuff before you get married, for example.
Oh my God, that's a joke.
No,
people don't know Mormonism.
No, I mean, so they do make it feel like if you do mess up, it's this terrible, insurmountable thing. So they need to calm the fuck down on how horrible, like, falling short of the standard is. But yeah, I'd say in general, if you're going to go with one of those extremes, if you're going to go with either the Mormon experience shame around sex and don't do it until you get married, or like the total freebird ex-Mormon who's all of a sudden like, we're opening our marriage, we're polyamorous, and I think err on the side of the Mormons.
Yeah, definitely.
And not to mention statistically, I read a statistic. I haven't looked into how accurate it is, but supposedly it's like a 92% failure rate, open marriages, which I thought that was very telling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was extremely telling. And so if people were to know that, I wonder if it would change their mind with opening a marriage, because
probably not. They'd probably just be like, you know
We're
what? We're probably one of the
8%.
3% that we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And I just, to me, I think it would be extremely arrogant to assume you're going to be one of the 8%.
Well, but this is coming from the people who used to be part of the 0.01%. So they are becoming more open-minded over time. You know what I mean?
Those numbers don't add up, right?
I think so. I have a 1-year-old. I'm very far away from teaching this, and I'll probably change my mind like 20 times between now and when I have to. But for a long time since leaving the church, I've thought I would teach my kids that they can have sex once they're in love. And that's a weird line, because they'll say to me, Dad, how do I know when I'm in love? And it's like, oh, you'll know. You will absolutely know. And when that happens, exactly. If your body is having a sexual response to anything, that means now you're in love with it, which means if you're a 7th grader in the middle of biology class and you're learning about I don't know, mitosis or something, and you have an NRB for some reason, then you're in love with biology. Sorry. But no, it's
no, that's pretty common. It's called a biology boner.
Totally.
Very common.
Yeah, very common. All of us who have been in 7th grade and we're boys know exactly what I'm talking about. But and then when that point arises, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell you that it's okay to buy condoms, because that's okay, and you're gonna be an adult about this, because you're in love, and that's how you show people that you're in love. And I know there's more to it than that, but it's trying to find something that's manageable, because I do feel like sex is an important enough part of marriage. Not that you should I don't like the used car, you should test drive it first analogy, but there is something to because I know it's degrading. potentially, but it's like you do need
Try
to
out that
know.
ass.
You do need to know that you have like some sort of like the worst thing that you could want for a friend is that they get married to somebody that it turns out they have zero physical chemistry with. You don't want that to be the case. And so there's like a certain amount that needs to be tested so that you at least know that the marriage that you're getting into is going to have that element, I think.
I don't know if I would agree with that entirely, because I think, like, okay, maybe if you've never like kissed or hugged or any kind of physical affection, but I think you can kind of figure sex out as you go, as long as there's some kind of spark. Like, yeah, there needs to be a spark. I agree with that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the same page as you for a different reason. Like, I think if you're committed to someone, it's a good time. But that's, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would just tell you the dad, look, I'm in love. Give me condoms.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, how long have you been in love? For 8 minutes, Dad. Shut up and give me condoms.
8 minutes. Give me the condom.
It's none of your business. I'm in love.
I do like your treat it like an adult situation, because I do feel like a lot of us were babied too much, and I think it left a lot of like we couldn't trust ourselves. And so the more we can treat our teenagers like adults, the more they'll actually grow up into adults.
Yeah,
so
treat them like they're trustworthy. That's the thing
Yeah.
that Mormonism does not do well around sex. That's every single rule at BYU Idaho.
Yeah.
Like goes away the moment you get married. You no longer have a curfew. You no longer have to live in student approved housing. You don't have like it's because you're not trustworthy, to abstain from sex. And so as soon as you are legally allowed to have sex, they're like, all right, no more rules. Congratulations. I mean, don't get drunk, I guess.
Legally?
We don't care. As long as you aren't gonna bang.
You're legally allowed to have sex.
Now bang all you can.
Jonathan Streeter, thank you. He said this is a great topic, loving the costumes. And I just want to come out publicly and say that I am a Jonathan Streeter supporter. So I'm coming out of the closet, letting everybody know that I like Jonathan Streeter, and I don't care who knows. We go.
Let's be. Morgan's opinions don't reflect mine.
They don't reflect the ex-Mormon community.
I'm still
for sure.
I'm still not sure about that guy, but
I don't know. We'll see. All right, so I'm gonna hit you guys with another reason. One parent at home. I think they nailed that. Like, especially if you're wanting to have kids, and I think you'd be seldom to find something more fulfilling than having kids. I think having one parent at home is absolutely amazing. And it can't always happen, right? Because sometimes you just can't afford it, which sucks. I'm grateful that Jared has a job that he can afford to support us without me having to work. I think it's massively important that I can be there for my kids. And it's also just like functionally, it works really well as far as like I can do a lot of cooking and cleaning so that we can both relax at the end of the day. So I think the whole having a parent at home thing is a great message. And yeah, it doesn't always work, but I think if you can make it work, it's an awesome thing functionality wise and for kids' development.
That's actually something I liked about one of the answers on your post that I thought was really sweet. Oh, you're pulling it up.
I've got it. I grabbed the good ones.
Oh, right there.
There it is.
She said, what I'm about to say will get some static because I realize there are two sides to it. But what I found helpful was when I was raising my little kids, which is hard, the church reassured me that my job as a mother was extremely important. My friends who did not have gospel teachings struggled to get validation from our culture/society regarding motherhood. And so I do think it's something that Mormonism gets very right. They definitely give motherhood its deserved credit.
They do treat it with a lot of reverence. Like, and I appreciate that. Like, it was frustrating to me that it was like that was our only role, like is how it felt at times. But I don't know. I'm grateful that they did put a lot of emphasis on it. I think I wish they could have just added in emphasis like also, you know, you can have hobbies and interests and a career if that's what you want also. And like this isn't your sole purpose, but I do love how much reverence and respect that they had for motherhood. And I think that's super beautiful.
Yeah, I think I mean I'm the only way it could get better than that is if they like enforced both parents have to be home, because that
That'd be
like
great.
that would be so amazing. The number of time, like if I struck gold and was a millionaire tomorrow, I would just be a stay-at-home dad. That would be the greatest thing that could ever happen to me in my life.
Oh hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I
Like,
feel so lucky.
I would triple the number of kids that I'm planning on having right now, and I would just stay at home dad it.
Oh my
You
God.
know what I mean?
That makes my heart like so happy. I just
so
love
good.
it.
So I guess
I always love geeking out with Cody about family because like
man.
me and him have that same like we just can't get enough of our kids.
If
So
I
I
could
love
just
it.
if I could just pick up my kid every day and throw him onto the bed and just watch him squeal as he lands on the pillows 24/7, that would be my life. It is
Oh
the
my
it
God,
is
I
the
love it.
greatest thing ever.
I guess that's, I
Oh.
mean, that is one of the things that I do like about them is the big family thing. Like,
Mhm.
that's one of the things they catch the most shit for is, oh, you're Mormon, you got a big family. I'm like, I grew up the oldest of 6 kids, and I loved it. Like, if money or health weren't an issue, I'd have like 10 kids, and I don't know, like,
Yeah.
it's the best.
Totally.
And I don't like. There's some people that, yeah, I'm not gonna tell you to have kids or whatever. I'm gonna tell you I think life is more fulfilling with them. So if you can, go for it. Anyway, I was gonna bring up, probably before we go on, the something that I hear a lot. This is something that you hear in a lot of atheist communities about a lot of different Christian denominations. And it's something you hear a lot about Mormonism too. And Morgan got this on her post, the idea that nothing unique to Mormonism is good and nothing good about Mormonism is unique.
I got that comment
So
several
clever.
times.
I know,
several times, and it had like 60 likes.
I like, oh, okay, 2003
Wow.
atheism plus is back. They want their stupid platitudes. And like, I don't know why you think that like doing a good thing or having a good idea needs to be original, because how many good things are there to do in existence, and how many of them have already been done,
Right.
like potentially billions and trillions of times?
Yeah,
Like,
don't adopt any kids. That's not a fucking original.
I know.
A doctor.
Oh yeah, you
somebody's
saved
life
that
and-
old grandma from a burning house. That's been done before.
Yeah,
That's
real
not
original.
unique to
Real
you.
original.
Like, you can find them elsewhere. It's like, yeah, but if you go to the elsewhere, you could find it elsewhere again. It wasn't original for elsewhere to emphasize families. Just like it's not original for Mormonism to emphasize families. So go somewhere that emphasizes family and hang on to that emphasis, whether you stay or go.
Isn't everything that's good isn't original and everything that is original isn't good? Isn't that whole thing just evidence of like a thought-stopping cliche, well and alive, deep in the heart of ex-Mormonism? Like, isn't that just proof? Like, that's a thought-stopping cliche. You're not smart because you said that. Like, I don't know.
I'm gonna be really
go
bummed
any
out because
further.
I have a sneaking suspicion that it was Hitchens that first said that, and I like Hitchens, but I'll have to look it up.
I responded to some of those comments and I was like, so what good things can you find elsewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I guess I was surprised, but I don't know. I got a lot of comments on that saying nothing, or the nothing good that can't be found elsewhere. Well, let's talk about what good that there is, because if we don't know what it is, then we don't know to find it elsewhere.
Right.
And I mean the biggest fear, right? Because you leave Mormonism and you think they're wrong about everything. So you just throw everything out the window. Like It's kind of I'm gonna go on a limb here. Kind of unoriginal how many ex-Mormons are on the political left, right? And it makes you think like, okay, are you over there because that's genuinely your perspective of the world? Are you over there because you're like, I need to be the most opposite of Mormonism that I can possibly be?
Yeah.
And I think that if you want to be honest with yourself, then if you can sort out not just what Mormonism did wrong, but what they did right, then you can empower yourself to live the best life you possibly can.
Yeah, I looked it up. It was Hitchens.
Nice. Very nice.
Oh well.
All the heroes gotta die one day.
He's still funny.
So another thing I have on my list, family home evening. My family didn't always do it, but I have a lot of really good memories from it.
It's actually one of the funniest ways I heard somebody talk about how Mormon they were. Is like, no, I actually did family home evening.
Yeah.
And not just like where you do it for a stretch of 2 weeks, maybe 3, and then give up. It's like, that was my family.
My family had one of those plates with all the different like things, like lesson, prayer, song, treat, like all that stuff. And then like our names, and then like, you know, every week you turn it and you do something else. Like my family was, yeah, we did family home evening. That was awesome. Yeah.
Family was Ubermormon.
Uber.
Yeah.
I loved we would always play like green light, red light. I don't know why, but that was a fun time. There was always ice cream involved, and yeah, there was always a message, but it was mostly red light, green light. So that was great.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it was just great coming together, doing something, like having a specific night where it was like, this is when we hang out, and I love that.
I will say that they got funeral potatoes right.
That was like, wait, I have that. Wait, read it.
Oh, did you? Oh, they got some good potato recipes right. Yeah, no,
they do.
So they got funeral potatoes so right that it makes up for the wrong of carrots in fucking Jello.
Is that a Mormon thing exclusively?
It's definitely a Utah thing, but well, apparently it is. I've never had carrots in Jello.
I've never had that either.
Well, I've never had it because it looks disgusting, but I've seen it at many a potluck.
I didn't see it at potlucks that I remember.
I've never even seen it live.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Standards.
And I'm like, are those carrots? They're like, yeah. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and knock this before I rock it, you know.
Yeah.
I only like calculators and Jello.
It's like Lucas has this thing he listens to, that is like combines two things. It's like, do you like pizza? Yes, I do. Do you like, I don't know, ice cream? Yes, I do. And then it mixes them together. Do you like pizza ice cream? It's like, ew, gross. I like carrots and I like Jello, but hell.
But what the hell? Yucky.
An original recipe by Fisher Price.
All right. A comment I got a lot was community stuff. I know Gail mentioned that in the comments too. It was up here. Where was it? Community stuff. People listed like young men's and young women's, like that they had fun, that they liked boys camp or girls camp, things like that. I love the like how they had all those activities based off of the kids' age, so they could be with other kids their age. Like that's super awesome.
See, I hated it, but that's because I was a douche.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You still are. So
no, I realized a lot of things. I realized a lot of things that I didn't like about it are probably good for, I don't know, most people. I'm just better than everyone.
That's true. That Jared is the Ubermensch, so you know, makes sense.
We're all only bridges to Jared, who is the true Ubermensch.
He is. Like, we're all just trying to kind of base our lives off of what he does. He hasn't killed anyone with an axe yet, so I'm just hoping it doesn't come to that. But
yeah, that is a temptation after you are the Ubermensch. So
it's apparently it's like an immediate temptation.
Well, it's because it's something that I am morally permitted to do.
Right. So stay away from any landladies would be my advice.
Oh my god. Or for those who don't get the reference, we're talking about Crime and Punishment, that all-time classic is what I'll call it. I'm actually reading it for the second time right now, and I'm excited about it.
It's so good.
My
So
kids
I thought of
interrupted
oh,
me.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say about Crime and Punishment. My kids interrupted me when I was in the middle of like between him killing what's her face and Lizabetta, and I was like,
I only
no,
know
I
her
need
as the
to- I
pawnbroker.
need to get to
Ivanova?
like stop.
Is that
I want to know what happens. Like, I'm freaking out. Anyway, sorry,
Oh.
what were you gonna say, Cody?
Those few passages when he's just hiding on like the second story, that's like the
Oh,
most
yeah, when
incredible
he's-
thing. Not to do like
Yeah.
not to do like a shameless plug of myself, but one of the only things on my channel that I've ever done that I'm legitimately proud of is I directly read the Laban murder
Yes.
right, and then I contrasted it with like the murder from Crime and Punishment just to see like
Yes.
who's actually a good writer. Like here's a fictitious murder, and here's another fictitious murder. Who did it better? And that was just like a fun thing, and I'm actually proud of that. But so I thought of a whole bunch.
Dostoevsky writes better than God?
I
Wait,
think
say
he
that
does.
again?
Are you saying that Dostoevsky writes better than God?
Yes. If God wrote that, I mean, if God wrote that, then yes. So I thought of a
Clearly.
whole bunch of things that go into this like peer development group stuff that's really good, mostly about young men's. But like, so here's a couple. You have really positive role models. Like I don't know of a club on earth where you can just go do like in 1 year you can do like 6 career days and see like successful people at their jobs. You have one-on-one like mentorship from adults who are their only job is to mentor you. I think that's incredible. Because like if you read 12 Rules for Life, the chapter where he says don't let your kids do anything that makes you dislike them, one of the main points for that is like if you dislike your kids, then other adults are going to dislike your kids. And if other adults dislike your kids, they're not going to give them all the opportunities that you would want your kids to have. So I love that there's like a set time where they can have adult mentorship. I think that's incredible. The other thing that I was going to say is that you're actually in charge of some of your peers, depending on what callings you have going through like the young men, young women system. And you have to speak publicly in front of them. So public speaking is a huge one that I can't think of another place unless you join like a debate team or something like that in high school. I can't think of another place where you can get that much public speaking practice. And that's just so helpful. A funny story that I wanted to just share is I know of a guy who lives, I'm not going to give many details about him, but he moved into a wealthier neighborhood in Salt Lake. And he is not a practicing Mormon. He doesn't think that it's true, but he decided that he would go back to church solely for the networking opportunities. And so in the last year that he's been living in this neighborhood, he has increased his yearly take-home salary by $20,000.
Jeez.
He must be part of an MLM. I'm just kidding.
He's just in one of those neighborhoods where everybody is like the CEO of whatever company they work for. And he's like, yeah, eventually I'll work myself up into a company and I'll become so reliable that it'll be okay that I leave the church. But for now, I'm just staying in it for the networking. And I think that's so funny.
I'm pretty sure that's a sin, but like, hey, that's great. Man, I think that's really kind of cool. Like,
well, it shows this
gives
culture.
Opportunity. There's trust and there's like there's this camaraderie of like you want to help each other out. That's kind of a beautiful thing. And these are your neighbors, like people that live close to you and they want to help you out. That's actually a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
A little scammy, but
unexpected. Mama Joe said that's part of the reason I went to church in Hollywood.
That's why you got so famous.
That's why you're so famous. Oh my god, that's what I should do. That is funny. That's funny. Okay. I have a lot of comments I want to read, but well, and we'll kind of jump around, Cody, if you've got more things on your list, we'll jump around with some comments. A lot of people talked about community service and like organizing events, both community service events and like Cody mentioned, like um activities for the youth. And they it's cool to me that they do give the youth opportunities to actually help plan and carry out the activities that are happening, because that teaches like a lot of responsibility. I remember kind of being annoyed by it at the time when I was in high school, but that was because I was really overwhelmed and I had like way too much going on, so I didn't want like another thing on my plate. But I did think it was cool how the church was organizing it in a way where they were trying to encourage the youth to be part of creating what was happening, and I thought that was cool. And other people commented about that. There was a Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something on that, Cody?
I have one that I think fits in with this, and
Yeah.
I think this one is going to be controversial.
Oh, good. You know how I love controversy.
Yeah.
I already came out as a Jonathan Streeter fan, so
I know. This might be more controversial than that, and he is like, whew, you know, he is. Seems like a nice guy. I don't know what the problem is. So is it because he's telling the truth? Is that it? I don't know. Anyway, tithing.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm just
Tithing.
kidding.
Fuck off.
So here's the thing.
Cody was removed from the live. I'm just kidding. Go for it. I'm teasing.
So obviously we now know that, like, from our perspective now, maybe it seems predatory, maybe it seems like they're taking too much from people, blah blah blah. But here's the thing. I can't think of any other group of people in the world who literally give 10% of their annual income away just for the betterment of something greater. Nobody else does that. And whether or not it's going to good causes is definitely up for debate. And whether or not the church should be honest about that or like frame it differently for people is totally a fair question. But the fact that these people are so good and they just want to give this because of the blessings that they think they're going to get for it is, I think, like, I don't know how they did that. If every organization could figure out a way to do that, that would be incredible. So that's my controversial take on tithing.
I like it.
Yeah.
I will say, I think there one good thing about tithing, and this is kind of like, this might be weird and you guys can tell me if you disagree, but I will say that so my background is in hypnotherapy, and when we were being trained, one thing that they talked about was a lot about the subconscious mind and the effects that your actions have on your subconscious mind, because you can do things that will change the way that your subconscious mind views the world and your life. And one thing that they mention about charity is that that if you give some money away, what you're telling your brain is that you have plenty. You're like, you're not feeding into a scarcity mindset. You're feeding into like a more grateful mindset. And if you have enough to give some away, then like it can open your mind up to more opportunities with money potentially, because your mind is kind of at this different set rate of like, oh, I have more than enough. Now that's definitely not the case for all Mormons, because there's a lot of Mormons that are really poor and they still try to pay tithing. But I will say that that is something that I've thought of with regards to tithing.
Yeah, I think I don't know, if they wanted to sell me on tithing, I would like for them to quit saying that you should pay tithing before you feed your kids.
Fair.
Like,
100%.
What are you saying? Are you saying God's not going to feed those starving kids?
Yeah, what the fuck, Jared?
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. Tithing to me was always just an obligation, and I did it begrudgingly. So any of the any of the like subconscious things that you get from tithing, I probably didn't get them because I was angry that and part of it was because like 10% of my money was going to tithing, and then the other 90% was going to the mission fund. Like that was so I just didn't earn money working 3 jobs or whatever. But I think if you can convince a group of people to give what they can, I don't know. There might be a good way to do tithing the way that the Mormon Church does it if they just quit saying like
your salvation depends on
it.
it.
Quit saying quit saying your salvation depends on it. Maybe make it a little more optional. Don't say it's like pay tithing before paying rent, and then don't have it be like the only sin that you actually have to yearly come in for to be like you haven't fucked nobody, have you? Like they don't do that. You don't have
my
sex settlement at the end of you guys isn't going to orgies, is ya?
Can you imagine if they had sex settlement? Okay, if you don't know what tithing settlement is, it's like every December at the end of the year, the bishop will invite your family to come in and basically ask you point blank if you guys are full tithe payers. And it's pretty
puts your temple recommend on the table and he pushes it around and he goes, it's a pretty temple recommend you got there. It'd be a shame if something was to happen to it.
Anyway.
And then I'm like, oh no, I can't go to the temple.
I mean, I guess they do the whole like, have you had sex thing for the youth, you know?
Yeah. They'll ask you if you do, but
I got
like
when you're getting a recommend.
There's not like a yearly meeting for you to come in and I don't know. The only meeting they have where you're specifically designed to come in for this one purpose is like you're giving us money, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine if they did like a yearly masturbation settlement where it's like based on how many times you came in and told the bishop that you've been jacking off? My records indicate that you have jerked off 142 times this year. Is that number accurate?
Okay, yeah, but it's down from last year.
Oh yeah, it sounds pretty low to me. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna jump over to some comments here. As a kid, the no caffeine, no alcohol, no tobacco, no porn rules were generalized and to avoid addictions, which I think is still solid advice, but moderation and self-control should be included in the strategy. Abstinence rarely succeeds. I thought that was a great comment.
Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah. I think as long as they take porn and quit telling you that it's the end of the world, which I think they've moved away from that messaging a little bit because now boys talk to it. Because when I was a kid, I thought I was the only person watching porn. I thought I was the worst person in the congregation because I was watching porn. Mm-hmm. And I think now it's more known that like, yeah, it's a thing that a lot of boys do and maybe stop doing it if you can. So as long as they get away from that messaging that they had, it's good to tell people to, avoid porn.
Yeah. That's another thing I feel like the church got right. It's the whole porn thing because I don't know when there's a lot of ex-Mormons like, oh, there's nothing wrong with porn at all. I'm like, actually, I think there's a lot of things wrong with it. And I think that Mormonism just never told us the things that were wrong with it. They just were like, don't make Jesus cry. Don't do that.
Oh, God don't like it, I guess.
I think that, I mean, in part, like just the effects of the dopamine, the way that affects your brain with porn, like that, there's a lot to be said about that alone, not let alone like, inappropriate sex things happening that I can't say that word that, bring those videos into fruition.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was, I think 16 when I learned that my other friends had also like looked at porn and like masturbated. And that was like a revelation to me. I was 16 and I was on a camping trip and I was like, it was like 2 a.m. and none of us could sleep because we built a log cabin out of fallen trees and then it got really cold and rained and it was like, this was a bad idea. So of course none of us can sleep because we're freezing, and we're all feeling very vulnerable. And I'm just like, have you guys ever seen porn before? And all of them were like, yeah, what the hell? And then just went back to their conversation.
Like, woo! I'm not
like,
burning in hell alone.
At least I'll be with you guys.
Yes. No, dude, that must have been a big fucking deal, because that's
was
really scary shit.
It
When
was.
you feel like you're going to hell, and you feel like you're the worst person ever, and you're the only person that's ever done that. That's hard.
Yeah. And this kind of brings me to at least the last thing on my list that I could think of was and I know there are more, but like I know that the church struggles with this one, but I want to give them a little bit of credit because I think okay, I'm going to back up for a second. You know how they always say that the church is perfect, but the people are imperfect? I think that they have that exactly backwards. I think that the church is not that great, but the people make it so good. And and so that's where this comes from. The idea that when like on this path to using the atonement and getting better and making yourself into a better person, you are encouraged all the time to forgive yourself when you're forgiving other people. And that is like maybe like the fact that there even is a way that you can come back, even if we disagree with what a sin in the Mormon paradigm is, the fact that you can come back from a sin and the fact that you can be made whole again is like I think that's exactly right. I don't think they could have worded it any better. Like that's exactly what every human being needs to hear and believe about themselves.
Yeah, I think the church could have a lot more going for it if, like, I guess maybe the biggest problem with the church is the same thing as the biggest problem with like America, and that is parents are lazy bastards, and like they might know a thing. Because I think that the reason that most ex-Mormons just are like, oh yeah, porn's all right, is because like none of their parents told them why they thought it was bad, other than God says no. And if the only reason something is bad is because God, the church, says no, as soon as you think, well, the church isn't true, oh, I don't have to avoid doing that bad thing that I really like doing because it's not a bad thing anymore. Right. So, like, I think if they could explain their reasoning behind a lot of things, like actually try to reason it out and tell their kids that, then they would have a lot more going for them. And I think that's where I am on the whole forgiveness thing. I struggled with the idea of redemption for anything, for my whole life. I always thought I thought of mean things I did in the second grade and they ate at me. I don't think I believed in redemption as a Mormon. It took me a lot to get to the point where I thought, and I'm probably uniquely terrible at that, but that was one of the things in this group I'm in. It was claimed that, I don't know if this is true, but it's from a guy that works at BYU that was telling us that the church did this survey, like hired a company to be like, okay, what the hell are we doing?
What are we doing wrong? Why is everyone leaving?
Why is everyone leaving? And what the company came back after surveying a bunch of people and said was, you need to emphasize the struggle. And I don't think the church does that very well.
Instead of like the end goal or the perfection.
Yeah, like in Mormonism, there's so much pressure to represent the group that like you can't show that you are struggling. You can't show that you're climbing and getting better. You have to already be there. There's that pressure. Yeah. So I think if they did that a little bit better, a lot better, that the redemption thing could be very beautiful.
Yeah, Cody, I really like that you brought that up, because the whole redemption thing, that hadn't even occurred to me, and I'm like thinking a lot about it, because I do think that we are kind of fucked if we can't think that we're redeemable. Yeah, in some sense.
Yeah, well, and part of it's kind of just a Christian message in general that like that's something I've come to realize is that like a lot of atheists will be like, well, what about like a murderer that apologizes and then goes to heaven? And I think a lot of times the Christian response is, yeah, that's the point. That like the point is that it's undeserved, that you can't actually make recompense for the bad thing that you did. Like you're actually asking for a thing you don't deserve, because like full complete justice doesn't really exist. There has to be some amount of mercy, right? So if you've wronged a person, like you can't go back in time and unwrong them.
Right.
And so to some degree, they have to give you something that maybe you don't deserve. And if we don't do that, then we don't function as a society.
Yeah. So to bring this way back to crime and punishment, like there is like this magical redemption thing that happens right at the end of the book. Like the book ends and then there's like 7 more pages and then everything changes. And it does come across like people have I don't really want to spoil it. Although you said that you're on your second time, right, Morgan?
Yeah, you can spoil it.
Yeah, people don't like the epilogue a whole lot.
Yeah, people don't like the epilogue and they feel like it's too, everything just kind of becomes magical and gets fixed. But it's like anybody who's ever felt forgiven for something knows that that's exactly what it feels like.
Damn, that's so cool.
I don't know how Dostoevsky did that, but it's like so I'll there was a point on my mission. I was having a what's the word? An interview with my president, and there was something that had been bothering me. And it was a small thing. Looking back, it was a very small thing, but I was so trying to be perfect, and it wasn't in a healthy way at all that I was trying to be this perfect, but I was. And so the interview ends, and he's like, "Is there anything else?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there is something else." And I told him, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, you're totally fine." Like that was his exact answer. He was like, "You're totally fine." And I had been like every morning for like the last 2 weeks, I had been like praying about this, like, please, please, please let me be forgiven for this. And then after he said that, he's like, "Okay, yeah, so you're good on that. Would you say the closing prayer?" And I was like, yeah. So I say, "Dear Heavenly Father," and then I just start bawling. And I could not finish the prayer. And he had to finish the prayer. And then for like the next 3 days, every time I would sit down for like a personal study or something like that, I just start crying again. And it really did feel that magical. It was like this thing that's been taking up all of my energy and all of my time is just gone now. And I never have to worry about it again. And that was such I don't know. It was just such an incredible feeling. And like, I felt that again since leaving. Like there are things that I feel bad about. And then I remind myself, like, you're trying, you're only human. And then it happens again. But it's so like redemption and this idea. There's this song there's this band called American Football. And I'm not going to remember what particular song this is, but there's just one part of this song where it just starts repeating the line, "Forgiveness is a mystery," as like the music just kind of like crescendos, and it just says that over and over again, and it's so pretty. And I listen to that sometimes and I'm just like, oh my God, it is a mystery. I'll never wrap my brain around this. So anyway, sorry, rant over.
Oh, you don't have to apologize, Cody. You're a baller. I love that whole thing that you just shared. And I think it's so valuable that I can't believe redemption didn't even come to my mind. It's such a beautiful concept. And I really relate with your story because I remember it was like a year ago, I was having a really hard time reflecting on my life and realizing like that there was some serious issues that I had caused, and that I felt horribly guilty. I felt terrible, and I was convinced that I was a bad person because I had done those things and caused that harm. And I was like trying to get right with myself, and I didn't know how, right? Because I didn't really have like God in the picture at the time to like, just take it all away. And I didn't like that idea because I was like, I've had people that have fucked me over and like God's just gonna go forgive them like while I'm over here bleeding. Like that doesn't feel fair. But I realized like that I was trying to figure out what my definition of forgiveness was. And I was like, I can't be forgiven unless I fix the thing that I did wrong. And I can't. This is not something that I can take back. And then it was just like this depression of like, oh my God, like I'm never going to feel better. I'm never going to feel better because I can never fix this thing. And then it was like, I had to work through this and get to a point where I was like, no, okay, there are other people that exist that have done things that they can't take back. And like, I can choose to believe that forgiveness exists outside of things that you can't fix, or I can choose to believe that it doesn't. But I am going to be better off, and the people in my life are going to be better off if I can choose to believe that forgiveness can exist, even if you can't fix what you did wrong. So I really love that you brought that whole thing up.
Well, and fixing what you did wrong is, I mean, it's often impossible. It's almost always impossible, really. Like, Louis C.K. has this great bit where he talks about his two daughters when they were really young, and one of them like got mad at the other one and broke her toy, and he's like trying to figure out how to make it better or whatever. He's like, "What can I do for you, sweetie? She's really sorry." And then the other daughter just goes, "Break her toy." He's like trying to explain to her that we can't do that. This is just this endless cycle of revenge. There's no way to make it totally fair, but like we need to move on, because if you're obsessed with just pure justice, it's almost identical to vengeance, you know, and you can't move on.
If you guys are enjoying this conversation, definitely check out the video I just did last week with Mama Joe about forgiveness, because we go so in depth, and it was intense.
If you ever want to meet a forgiving person, then talk to Joe.
And it's so beautiful because he talks about in the interview, he talks about how forgiveness was the best thing he ever did for himself. And it just blows my mind. I was sobbing during that interview. It was so good.
It's brutal.
Okay, jumping back to the comments here to read a few more. A lot of people brought up debt and money and income, like financial stability, because Mormonism did kind of have the undertone of, not undertone, that's another word, but that emphasis of
be practical.
Be practical, unless you're praying and God tells you what to do. You know, outside of that, like make money, try to avoid debt. Like they had some good financial advice for a while. Someone said home teaching and visiting teaching. Another person said the welfare program. Work hard. I had that on my list. I forgot about that one. Working hard was definitely the mindset of a lot of the members there, for sure. Like, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I learned that from Mormonism. I know we've already brought up public speaking too, but I really appreciate that, because I probably wouldn't have this channel. I mean, well, I definitely wouldn't have this ex-Mormon channel if I had never been Mormon, but I really appreciate the skills that I learned with public speaking as a kid. And I was terrible, but I got better and better, you know, because there was so much opportunity to speak in front of people.
I liked it because I'm showboaty.
That's okay, because you're sexy, so you can be showboaty.
I was thinking about
go ahead.
Just the work ethic that you learn as a teenager. Like, it's crazy, especially when, like, I don't know, I feel like, so like I sometimes have to like interview and hire people, and you just really don't know who's going to be like an actual hard worker. And people will show up and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I work hard, like you don't have to worry about me." And then 2 weeks later I only see them on their phones. And it's have
you tried judging books by their covers?
I do. And sometimes people are really good at putting on different covers.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like uh-oh, I think my baby is crying. I might have to go get him in a second. But okay. Yeah, just I am so grateful for the work ethic that I was taught to have as like a kid, getting up early to go do flags on like holidays. You know what I mean? Just like the little stuff is, I think it's really, really good for developing humans.
Absolutely. Hey, you just jump off whenever you need to, and we're going to finish this out.
Yeah, I just hold my place for me, but I think I'm going to leave for a moment. And
yeah, no problem.
Okay, I think I just hit leave.
You just leave it on and I'll pull you out for a second. All right. I've got
Alone
a
at
couple more.
last.
We can have spider making out session. All right. This comment I didn't think of. This was a cool one. Meditate and ponder on choices before acting on them. I thought that was actually pretty cool because like they would always say like go and pray about it, and now I think that there's a problem with praying about it, which is that you maybe make a choice based off of your feelings, but I do like that they would at least take the time to say like I need to have some quiet thought about this decision. I like that a lot. We got here food storage.
Yeah.
Mormons are pretty big into like prepping, I guess I would say, preparing for the end of the world. And I actually think it is a wonderful thing. Now, I will say some of them go so extreme and they spend a lot of money on food that just ends up going bad and spoiling.
Yeah,
but
food
you can
storage rotate.
Yeah, you can food storage correctly. Like there's better ways to do it than other ways, and I think that was a really smart thing. I don't think that the world is going to end, but
as we
from
rapidly
COVID,
approach the end of the world, I think.
From everything that happened with COVID, like man, I wish we had had food storage during that time, just because like things were going crazy. Mostly, I wish we had toilet paper storage for sure. But I think having storage of extra things is just a valuable thing. You never know what natural disaster might occur or whatnot, and it's no big deal to just have some extra things in stock just in case, as long as you don't waste your money and let them go to waste. Oh good, let's get some more Spider-Man action here. I will say this next comment, I will say the active Mormon side of my family seems to be more stable in terms of relationship. Feels like the other side goes through a wild oats kind of period. I mentioned that comment earlier. I think that within Mormonism, there's no question of like we're gonna break up. Like, of course we're gonna stay together. Families are forever, and so they have a lot of incentive to work things out. And not that they always do it right, because I do think that there's a lot of miscommunication issues that exist in most people's marriages. But the divorce rate for Mormons is lower than the general population. I think that does say something.
I do think that when you get married, the stakes have to be high. Like you can't,
Yeah.
I don't know. We had that discussion about prenups, and I don't think I like prenups anymore because I don't know. It's like
I can't hear you. You're not talking with your hands.
I don't like prenups. You're kind of getting into a situation without with a backup plan in mind. You're just saying like, oh, let's plan B. Maybe when you get married, you shouldn't necessarily have a backup plan because I don't know. Maybe that sounds terrible. I think in most situations you should, but like maybe when you're getting married, the stakes should be so high that you don't see ending it as an option unless like certain criteria are met, like somebody is abusive or somebody is like cheating, or I don't know. There's justification, like obviously, but
I can't even think of my next thought because you just look so fucking cool.
God, I look so cool.
All right. My last comment here that I was gonna read. How to run a pyramid scheme. That was so funny. I was laughing so hard when I read that one because if you don't know, within Mormonism, there is just a lot, and I mean a lot, of women that are into the MLMs. And MLMs are essentially pyramid schemes. And so it's funny to me that they brought that up because I was just very on point, I felt like, which just cracked me up.
Well, it's nice being in an elders quorum with a bunch of people you trust, because then when they come to tell you that they can get you in on the ground floor of their business, you can be your own boss.
Yeah.
You can own your own business.
Yep.
Then you know that they're not trying to scam you, which is awesome.
There you go. There you have it. There it is. It's there. Anyway, yeah, so I just a couple closing thoughts. I don't want to be Mormon. I don't think that it's true, but I want to honor my Mormon heritage for all of the good and all of the bad that it was. I want to be in a position where I can appreciate the good and know what that good is so that I don't throw it away just because it has a Mormon label on it.
It's laughably naive to say that there's nothing good that came from Mormonism. And if there can be good things that you got from a portion of your life, you would be very unwise to not try to get those, to take those lessons.
I don't know if Cody wanted me to add him back on, but he's back.
I'm back. Hello.
We were having our closing thoughts.
I know, I heard it. Laughably
right before
naive.
we have the
I
closing
agree.
prayer.
Oh, am I doing the closing prayer?
Maybe. I haven't decided. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Jared has to call on who does the closing prayer because he's the head of the household.
I am the patriarch.
I
I said a prayer in my heart.
Yes, Cody, closing thoughts. Oh, wait, actually, I got to read this comment to Cody really quick. How to run a pyramid scheme. That was a good one.
That is a good one. That reminds me of that
we still can.
When in the office, when Jim is like, Michael, that is a pyramid scheme. And he's like, no, it's not. All I have to do. And then he does it. And then Jim just draws a pyramid around it. And then Michael just shuts up and sits down. Ugh, amazing.
I need to make some phone calls.
Oh man. No, I'm really glad that you asked me to be in this video. I think it was Jared who said that at the beginning of this, but like, it's definitely a stage of your ex-Mormonism where you maybe can't think of anything good about the church. And if that's where you are, then that's okay. I think eventually you will push beyond that. And that is, I think, for me, that's the healthier place to be, where I can just kind of say, these are the good things, these are the bad things. Obviously, I have made the choice, no matter how good some of these good things are, I will not be going back in the foreseeable future. And so, but two things can be true at once, like there are a lot of good things that come from it. And yet I will choose to try and take advantage of some of those good things in other ways, because I feel like that's what's best for me.
Amen. Hallelujah.
And some of these books I've been reading on, like Jungian psychology type thing, they talk a lot about liminal phases. And like a liminal phase, I think the translation, it's supposed to refer to like a doorway or something. It's or like a hallway, basically, something that gets you from point A to point B. And in these books, it's point A is a less mature phase and point B is a more mature phase.
Right.
And we can do this thing pretty often where that liminal phase feels so new and awesome and fresh that we don't want to leave it, because then the freshness goes away. And so we can extend those liminal phases into like just misery. And I know I tried to do that with the whole ex-Mormonism thing. Like there's only so many times you can be like, did you know that Joseph Smith, blah, 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 blah. Like, and I did it like probably more than like my angry phase overstayed its welcome. And I knew I was miserable about it. Like I knew I was like, okay, I just gotta like think about other things. My God.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying this from a place of somebody who definitely tried to artificially extend that liminal phase.
Yeah, it's like, what are you going to do? Move your bed into the hallway and just live there?
Right. It's like, understand ex-Mormonism is a temporary stage.
Yeah.
Don't unpack and live in that hallway. You're not meant to live in a hallway. And I think that a lot of people, they just don't know where else to go. And trying to figure out who you are is so scary and so intimidating. But it's just like, you got to remember that that an anti-identity is just as controlling sometimes as an identity. Like if you were being controlled by Mormonism, then if you want nothing but to talk about how you're being controlled about Mormonism, and again, you need that at first, but if you want that forever, then you are going to have a really hard time finding a lot of fulfillment in your life, because you're going to be locked into this this identity of like I have to bitch about Mormonism all the time. So, but yeah, again, no shame to people that are still in that stage. I was in it for years, but just know that there is a way out, and that you can start to try to discover who you are. Who are you? Don't you want to know? And the way to discover that is to ask questions to yourself. Like, what do I remember when I was kind of having my ex-Mormon faith crisis, where I was just like, I don't know who I am. And I was just like, what do I like to do? I don't know. I like making videos. I like playing pickleball. And I just kind of, work back from there. So anyway, this video was awesome. Does anyone else have anything else before we sign off? This was so awesome. Cody, I always love you coming with your video, with our videos. Thank you for all your insight. Thanks for geeking out about Crime and Punishment with me and about our kids and how awesome they are.
Of course.
And thank you to everyone. Wait, say it again.
I said, I love all those things too. You guys are amazing.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Oh, I forgot. It was so funny. I forgot to mention this. On YouTube, I changed the settings on this live where like you couldn't comment unless you were a subscriber. And I did that vengefully because I noticed on my analytics the other day that most people aren't subscribed that watch my channel. I was like, screw you guys. Now you don't get to come on the live unless you hit subscribe.
Okay, but like, were you like, do you know how many sexy singles I've met in my area due to the comments on your videos?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, all they have to do is hit subscribe. Okay, Jared's making a joke about a previous live where the comment section was getting blown up by some very
sexy singles in my area.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Not, yeah.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Anyway, thanks everybody, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.